Hey guys, John with Mini Motors USA. Today we're going to be replacing what looks like a motor controller on a Dualtron Thunder. We're having an issue here where the front tire is off. We did try a new switch. You can also the first thing I would do is always check the switch. You can run a continuity test on it. We do have a video out showing how to do that. If you have a bad switch, it's a pretty easy fix. So right now, since I know the switch is good, I think we have a bad motor controller. The only thing that's kind of worth checking as well is the master circuit breaker switch here on the side. If that's not supplying, if there's something wrong with it, it's not supplying power to one of the motor controllers, you're going to have the same issue. So it's definitely worth checking that first. So let's get started. We're going to first take a couple of these wires to the motor controllers right here, these two and these two, and we're just going to cut the heat shrink tube, swap the wires, and see if it's actually the switch. First thing you're going to want to do is shut down the power on the circuit breaker and let all that juice bleed out. So we're going to get started by cutting the heat shrink tube off of here. Next thing we're going to do is just unplug these. And we're going to unplug these. And we're going to swap positions. And you want to make sure none of the wires are touching each other, and then just fire it up real quick. We still have the same issue. If the switch was bad on one side, it would basically, your front would be driving and your rear would not. So we know we have a bad motor control. The other thing to note, if you're wondering if it's a motor control or a bad motor, if you do have a bad motor, when you spin the motor, you're going to feel a lot of resistance in the motor. So if the motor spins freely, your motors are good, and then it's going to be your motor control. So the nice thing about the Thunders, these are honestly the easiest scooters to work on. You have a ton of space in here, and you know, they're pretty easy plug and play. The phase wires aren't soldered or anything together, so it's not a big deal replacing these. So we're gonna shut the power off of the circuit breaker, drain all the power out of there, swap these power wires back, adding back in the heat shrink tube. You can leave them. You can leave the power wires off on that motor control because we're pulling them out. Next thing we're going to do is just strip down the heat shrink tube on the phase wires. All right, we got the heat shrink tube off the phase wires. One thing to note on your front motor controller, you're going to know it's the front motor controller because your motor phase wires are coming from the front rather than the rear. Also, if you are doing a rear motor controller, just note that the green wire switches to the blue wire, the blue switches to the green here. If you were to wire them backwards, your motor would be spinning in the other direction. So that's worth noting. Just going to pull apart the phase wires, and we're going to unscrew the motor controller from the bottom. It's just a 3mm Allen. We'll flip the scooter on the side. And then you're just going to make a little bit of room here, and you can start by unplugging the wires and plugging them right back into the new motor controller. So I like to do just one at a time. Here's your 2 white, go to that 2 white, and so on and so forth. So when you get to the white wire, basically you're going to have to take out this this red wire. This is the most complicated thing when putting in these motor controllers. You're going to use a paper clip, or we use this dental pick. Put it right in here, right by the connector piece. Just slide it in and down, and give it a little push pull, and it'll pull right out here. And what you're doing there is there's a little tab right under here, which you're basically making flat. So then you can lift up the tab a little bit so it clicks in to the new JST connector right there. And then you just plug that. Okay, so we have everything pretty much plugged in here. We have the phase wires disconnected, the battery wires disconnected. This whole older motor control should be ready to be pulled out. And we can slide this one back in. So your speed limiting wires here. on the Thunder, it just fits into this little notch down there, and then you can tighten the screws up a bit. And we're just screwing the motor controller back in here on the bottom. We're going to plug our power back into the motor controller, add a little bit of the heat shrink tube back in there. Okay. You're going to plug your phase motor cables back in, again adding some more heat shrink tube. On your front, it's going to be yellow going to yellow, blue going to blue, and green going to green. And then before I heat up all this heat shrink tube, once I have the wires covered up, I'm going to just flip it on, and we should be seeing the front motor kicking in here. There we have it. So that's replacing a motor controller on a Dualtron Thunder. To finish up, all we're going to do is heat up this heat shrink tube on those wires. Basically make everything, all the wires look as nice as we can in here, and put the cover on, and we are good to go. So if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment. We try to monitor them every couple weeks. If you want an answer sooner, always give us a buzz, shoot us an email. Always here to help. I hope you guys find these videos helpful. These scooters are super reliable. But as they come in, it's nice to kind of show you guys what we see, you know, how to be able to troubleshoot your scooter, how to be able to fix it. Anyway, always reach out with any questions. Thanks.